Welcome, my friends, to the comedy religion of Chef Ricardo. I say comedy religion not to be blasphemous, but in these other posts I've been speculating on a civil religion in the sense of Robert Bella in 1967 came out, and it was about the 4th of July, including other sort of national holidays, and this sense of sacredness that we have about our civic community, about our government, our nation. And these evoke genuinely sincere and sacred impulses and lots of emotions. But I've recently, I was grousing on one of the local blog lines about, nothing works these days, and I call it the Trump depression, because it seems like he's deliberately dismantling everything that I have held somewhat sacred since World War II, which, as you know, as the son of an immigrant, an Italian immigrant, two Italian immigrants, I take America very seriously and genuinely, and so when I grouse about and criticize Trump, it comes from not full, and it's a sincere place, but I was struck by just a mild grousing that the signal these days with this new technology of the internet is there's almost this crowd signal that if you say something on the internet, it's picking a fight. It's almost assumed that no matter what you say, you're picking a fight, and you're soliciting a counter response, which runs consistent to one of my sort of tin horn principles of the universe, which is for every action there's a equal and opposite reaction, and it's almost physics. But I've been fascinated, as you may if you've been followed some of these posts, with the idea of mirror images and chirality, and that you can see in the mirror an absolute duplicate of reality, only everything's reversed. Left is right and right is left. And this notion seems to strike me especially about our politics these days, and I've studied politics, and I'm not a total amateur in this, so I've done a lot of thinking about it, and I've had a lot of time to think about it too, and then I've been somewhat undistinguished. It's not like my hands have been busy building a business empire and making lots of money. So I've had a lot of downtime, so I have a lot of time to think about these things. And I'm not trying to pick a fight when I bring up, well, maybe I am a little bit. I want to draw a crowd, as with a lot of people on the internet. I want to do it without it planning too much and making it too much of a deliberate effort. Because, and this is going to seem rambling, I'm just rolling, as you can see. This is not a planned terribly. It's not like I've got outlines of what I'm going to say. But I was struck by recently, the last thing I saw was that Trump had a speech and everybody walked out. And this is at the big show. It's like, it's like the really unpopular kid at school that throws a party and nobody comes, and he's a bully, and you just hate him, and he's made you miserable, and he's beating you up. But you got to feel sorry for the guy for some reason. I just feel, when we're on the receiving end of bullying, and we all have, I'm not an expert in this, but part of me in hating all that has come to me, I think unjustly, unfairly, there's almost this instinctive sympathy neuron, which, you can kind of relate to it. I can kind of relate to trying so furiously hard to make it right and see, look at me, I've got this, I know what I'm doing. That thing that I think everybody has, this, look at me, and I'm special. And here's Trump that is just consumed by this. And you can see there was a movie Stand Up. I think it's got Tom Hanks in it and Sally Field. It's about stand-up comedians. Excellent movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of obscure. But I'm always fascinated by stand-up comedians and performers in particular. And it's so typically, you'll find these performers have gone through just nightmares to get to where they are. Lots of humiliations, but they've got to be a star. Jim Carrey's one, Robin Williams, and you realize that it comes from tremendous longing and pain and suffering that they muster this comedy. I was just thinking of John Panette, who I looked a lot like, and I discovered he came from Malden. Just a real funny guy, but does fat jokes all the time. And I go to step meetings about overeating and throwing my life away for obesity, and arguably, I've been so overweight that I've ruined. I get to a point in my life where I think I've got everything together, and then I'll just throw it all away, put on a couple hundred pounds, and just wreck it. And so this is this self-defeating thing that a lot of people talk about in psychology. And there's this flipping of the coin. I talked about it in an interview. I know this is rambling, but this makes sense to me anyway. And maybe with repetition it will to others. But, when you do something so much that it becomes the opposite. And I think of that in terms of Trump, that there's so much projection going on. There's so much of the opposite of what's going on. And I think in the last post I said, well, you get the model of the cult of the individual in America that was so great, is that, you have to put your self-interest to good purposes, and enlightened self-interest will make for a better society. And you don't have to force people, as with communist and authoritarian systems, force people into these roles and use force to will them into accomplishments. That often you give human nature a little room to self-direct, and things evolve with freedom to inventions and great things that human beings can accomplish for ourselves and for each other. And there's an enlightened self-interest. But you take this cult of the individual, and after World War II, we're given this great gift of America with wealth, and we didn't destroy ourselves like in Europe. Europe was devastated by war, as empires and social orders throughout history go through this cycle where they get really great and then they blow it all away, just like a neurotic, just like me or you. Why is it at the peak when everything's just really great? Why throw it away? What's the story? What is this death wish? What is this other side of the coin? And I'm always fascinated with this Taoist notion of yin and yang, that reality is a combination of good and evil. It's both, and you can't have one without the other. One defines the other. It is the contrast that makes us aware of it. Why does God in religion allow so much evil? And a lot of people use this to disparage religion. But there's wisdom to it, which is that without evil you have no contrast. Goodness is the definition. Goodness is counter evil. So unless you have that counter evil, you have no reference. Our human brains can't comprehend a reality without having everything inherent in it, its own negation. That's Hegel. I mentioned it last time. That all truth is half-truth. All truth is the truth and not truth, but it depends on the angle that you have it. So guys like Trump play the game where, it's okay to lie because everything's a lie. And if you get philosophical about it, okay, all reality is a lie because it's all representation and it's all this interpretation. Nothing is, as Kant would say, nothing is the thing in itself. It's all as it appears to us as individual bodies with our individual frame of mind, our individual egos. So it's impossible, it's beyond human capacity to understand the full truth, the whole truth. We can only focus on one thing at a time, and in each and every one of those frames, in order to put it in context, to get our hands around it, to make it into a thing, it's got to have something counter to it. It's got to have something opposite to it. So here we are with a perfectly split society, and we're each sort of accusing the other of destroying the country. And I really feel that, and it's interesting, the phrase "our country may die," because McCarthy, during the McCarthy era in the 50s, when they were trying to panic us about communism, our country may die, and I think he really believed it. I think MAGA and Trump really do feel genuine about their feelings about the country, and they really are alarmed that our country may die in the form that the liberals have given it. And I think, on the liberal side, we've got to admit that, you got to let other people catch on to what we're doing. And we've had a lot of very big changes that have taken arguably thousands of years to arrive at. Not so fast. Let's make sure everybody's on board. And again, with this climate where we can't have a discourse without it being a glove slapped across each other's face. And I want to say it's not so much right or wrong, and it's not so much right or left, and it's not so much good or evil. It's the salience of the topic. So if it's ringing a bell, whether you hate it or love it, it means you're caring about it. And so that's some hook there. And I'm thinking back to Lincoln when I'm talking about, good and evil on both sides. Lincoln saying, look, we got to forgive. And it's very much in Christian. This is why I'm so distressed about religion these days and what we make of the religion. Religion is good or evil depending on what you make of it. And it's this again, there's lots of biblical references. I mean, there's biblical references for everything. It's called casuistry. You can look in the Bible and find justification for anything. You can find a justification for any truth, and you can find its negation almost equally true, depending on your point of view, depending on your interpretation, depending on how you apply it. What's the context? What's the, relative to what? Everything is on a sliding scale. Now, one of the points I make is, especially with a comedy religion like this, the first thing about the comedy religion is, some things are too serious, too important to take seriously all the time. The only way you can approach it is with comedy. And I mean to say this about a comedy religion or a clown religion, which is you can't take it too seriously. And I mean to say that anytime a religion or politics says that this is the way, and hold on to it and never give up. Never give up. But that's not reality. Reality is it depends on the circumstance. We are constantly changing. We are constantly, life, like Heraclitus would say, life is constant change. So what is true for one moment, and Heisenberg would say the same thing, what is true for one moment is not true the next. There's no one absolute, it's an illusion, no one absolute truth. And I would say, along with Spinoza, there's no one absolute God other than nature, other than what's there. When we're conceiving of God in terms of us, saying that it's a person that meddles in our lives and judges us and treats us like another person, that kind of misses the mark to me. It does a disservice, and it adds up to a misconception of morality that winds up with death and suffering and misery. And so in order to unhook us from this, we have to sort of apply our own realities to other people's realities and give them room, for forgiveness and tolerance as we would give to ourselves, which is, what's another sort of cliche or principle of Christian thought. I've got this Young Rascals lyrics. I'm dating myself. How can I be sure in a world that's constantly changing? How can I be sure where I stand with you? Whenever I'm away from you, my alibi is telling people I don't care for you. How do I know? Maybe you're trying to use me, trying to hide and confuse me. Touch me, but don't let me down. I had the lyrics here, but anyway, how can I be sure? You can't be sure. That's the condition of the world, and we care so much to be cared for. And I think of this in terms of Trump and me and maybe everybody. You try so hard to bridge that gap from inside our own heads to other people's hearts and brains, and we're constantly matching. Just how does this? Am I the same? Am I projecting? And the great Jungian thing, you're accusing someone, when you're really angry at somebody, it's because they remind you of yourself. It's really revealing of something about yourself that you're not confronting. And I feel like on both sides of the political spectrum right now, we are doing this, and I used to say this about the Cold War, the USSR, the United States. You could do a list: USSR, USA. You're godless heathens. Yeah, but you're racist slave owners. You can point the moral finger at each other. Now, in the net results, for my money, you take capitalism, you take communism. Capitalism just works better, but it's not flawless. And if we push it to an extreme, like we do with, billionaires who think that they're the one. They're the one and only, the bestest, biggest, bestest. You're gonna all agree that I'm the biggest, bestest. It's the bully, and it's out of heartbreak. It's because mommy didn't like him the way he wanted to be loved when he really needed it, and it's so pathetic, and it's so obvious, and it's so shattering. But a lot of damage can be done with this, and we just gotta, I don't know. I keep saying open our hearts, and I feel like I gotta just, every time I'm so furious at Trump and MAGA, and you puny brain nobody, and they say the same thing about me, you puny brain nobody, they're gonna blame everything on MAGA, and it's just gonna degenerate. As Lincoln would say, we gotta get past this. We got this great Civil War, and we gotta put it down. We gotta put down all that fury and anger. We gotta just hope we're doing right. And as far as the religion thing is concerned, don't take it so seriously that you think just because you got the idea that you got the idea, because we're human beings, and that's my amateur understanding of Christianity is humility. Is that know that you're human, know that you have limitations. And you got to have a little seed of doubt, because that's humility. I don't know.